Okay, so hey guys, welcome to the Photoshop for the Complete Beginner series. My name is Laz and I'll be the one who'll go through with you guys the fundamentals of Photoshop. And probably if you're watching the series, you look something like this, and hopefully by the end of this series, you're gonna look something more like that when you see this Photoshop sign. Hang on, I can't draw. Oh, that's not much better. Anyway, you're gonna look something like this instead of like this. Now, for those of you who don't look like this or something similar when you see this Photoshop sign or when you open it up, then I would advise you to probably go ahead and skip the first couple of parts, because you're going to go through it very slowly and for the beginners. So I don't want to lose anyone throughout the beginner stages. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to close this, and hopefully you're not terrified, but probably you are terrified when you see all these things here. Okay, now the main goal of this series is going to be that we're going to go through some theory as well as practical lessons. We're going to go through some of the very basic tools at first. We're not going to go into details and so on, and then we'll go ahead and apply them basic tools and knowledge that we gathered throughout the beginning parts and apply it to some practical sessions. Okay. So the first thing I want to make sure that everyone does when you open up CS6 is that on the top right around here, make sure that you left click and then set it to Essentials. And in case you changed anything around, make sure you also go ahead and hit Reset Essentials, okay? And what this will do is it will reset your workspace to the standard workspace, and hopefully this way you'll be able to follow along, okay? So the first thing we're going to do is actually we're going to go ahead and create a new image. Okay, so you're just going to go to File and then New, and this little window will pop up. Okay, now here you can set the size of your image, and for those of you who doesn't really understand pixels and so on, I do have a tutorial explaining what pixels are, so I'll probably put up a link, an annotation where you can go ahead and click that, and if you want to find out more about it, you can go ahead and watch that video. Anyway, if you go to presets, as you can see, I have some presets that I already saved for myself, and you can also go ahead and go to US paper or international paper, photo, web, mobile, blah blah blah. Probably the most useful one is the international paper. You can go ahead and click that, and as you can see, a little size option will pop up here where you can go ahead and pick your size. So if you need to make, let's say, a flyer, then you know that you will need probably an A4 or an A5 or an A3. Probably for a flyer you would need an A5, okay, or an A4 for a picture. Everyone really knows what an A4 size page looks like, okay. And then the width and height, as you can see, this will change to millimeters when you go to A4, but you can also go ahead and change back to pixels. So roughly you can tell an A4 size page is roughly 2408 pixels by 3500. Okay, so the resolution, as you can see, this is pixels per inch. And again, if you don't understand pixels, make sure you go ahead and watch that tutorial. I'd recommend if you work for web and so on applications, I'd use at least 300 pixels per square inch. Probably for print at least 150. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and make an A4 page with 300 resolution. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and click OK. As you can tell, our page popped up, which is all good and great, and I don't want you to worry about all this stuff over here. Okay, just ignore all this stuff for now. We're going to go through the tools here, and I'll walk you through some of this bit as well. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is you can go ahead and click this little icon, and as you can tell, your little tool bar here will change, or you can go ahead and click it back and so on. You can also go ahead and in the file you can open up images and so on, but we'll go through all these later on, and same with edit, image, layer and so on. We'll go into these more details later on down the line. What I want you to focus on for now is this second bar here. So what this does is kind of like a sub menu for the tool that you're currently selected. So if I go ahead and click my move tool, as you can tell, a little sub menu will pop up here with the options for your move tool. If I go ahead and select my paintbrush, which is this one, as you can tell, a little sub menu will pop up here where I can go ahead and change my brush size and so on. Okay, I know it's all terrifying at the moment, but you guys will get all familiar with this later on. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead and make some shapes. Okay, so the first thing you're going to do, this is the move tool where you can go ahead and move stuff around your page. The second one is the rectangular marquee tool. So if you left click and drag, a little sub menu will open up here where you can go ahead and change it to elliptical or so on. We'll just go ahead and select the rectangular marquee tool. And then if you go ahead and left click and drag on your page, as you can tell, it will make a little square for us. So once I let go, it will make a selection. Okay, now what selection means is it basically this selection is now our working space. So whatever I do inside here will appear, and whatever I do outside here will not appear. Okay, so this is very important. So now that I select this, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and select our paint bucket tool, which is this one. And in case you have the gradient tool, that you shouldn't do, if you left click and drag again, paint bucket tool and let go, it will select that. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and pick a foreground color, which is at the moment is black, that you can see here, and our background color is white. So I'm going to go ahead and click this little square, and as you can see, my color picker will come up for the foreground color, and I'll go ahead and just pick a red color for now. Okay, and then click OK. Now once I have that, as you can see, I have a little paint bucket near my mouse, so that tells me that I'm on this tool. Now once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and click inside this box. Well, let's go ahead and first try outside and see what happens. Okay, and as you can see, nothing happened, and the reason for that is because basically all this area is now locked because we still have this selection going on. Okay, so if I click inside, as you can tell, it will only fill in this area. Let's go ahead and make another shape. So let's go ahead. If I press Ctrl D on my keyboard, then it will deselect my current selection. Okay, so if I press Ctrl D, as you can see, it disappears. You can also make it disappear, I think, by pressing Q on your keyboard. Nope, that's not it. I don't know what they've done. Oh, it made a mask. We'll go into them later on. So let me just undo that. So you can also undo things with Ctrl-Alt-Z on your keyboard, or you can also go to Edit and Step Backward, okay? And that will basically undo what you just messed up. So I'm going to deselect this with Ctrl-D. Now I'm going to go ahead and select my elliptical marquee tool and go ahead and drag one out. And if you hold down Shift, it will make a nice circle for us. Okay, so I'm just holding down Shift and left clicking and dragging. And then again, I'm going to go ahead and select my paint bucket, which is G on your keyboard if you want to learn shortcuts, that you should do because it will speed up your workflow. So I'm going to go ahead and pick another color for this. I'll make this one black. Okay, and fill that one. And then again, press Ctrl D to deselect. Now if you go ahead and pick on Move tool, okay, and make sure Auto Select is turned on, so you can tell if I try to move these, I can't do that because all these are on the same layer. Okay, so what we need to do to be able to move these objects around to be separate from the page is to have it as a new layer, but we'll go through layers later on down the line. We're not going to go through that at the moment. So next what we're going to do is, let's say for example I want a circle inside here, a white circle. So let's go ahead and select my rectangular marquee tool again, and I can just go ahead and hold down Shift. Okay, oh, I messed that one up, there we go. And I should be able to go ahead and move this selection, which will basically cut that out for me. Okay, like so. What we can also do while this is selected is we can go ahead and press Delete on our keyboard, and then we can go ahead and use a foreground or background color. Our background color at the moment is white, so you can go ahead and use that to fill this selection in. Okay, so if I go ahead and press OK, as you can tell, that will get deleted. We can also go ahead and make another selection by holding down Shift, the circle one, and we can go ahead And let's say, for example, to make things faster, if I click this little arrow here, it will swap my foreground and background color. Okay, and then again, if I press G for my paint bucket tool, I can just click inside here and it will fill it with white. Okay, so you somewhat went over the paint bucket tool and selection, foreground, background color, the move tool, and so on. Now let's say if I didn't want to make, let's say, just a rectangular shape, and I want to fill that, I want to go ahead and make a little zigzaggy sort of shape around here. Let's go ahead and go to the next tool, which is our polygonal lasso tool. Okay, there is a lasso tool as well. The polygonal lasso tool basically lets you to drag straight lines. So if I wanted to have a zigzaggy edge around here, I can go ahead and just go around it like this, and then you gotta go all the way back around here to make your selection, because this tool also makes the selections. And now if I double click or join it up at the end, as you can see, it will make a selection for us. Okay, so now what I can go ahead and do is, again, I can go back to my paint bucket tool and fill that with white. Okay, and as you can tell, it cuts those bits out as well. Or if I wanted to, I can go ahead and, let's say, press delete again on my keyboard and use my foreground color, because my foreground color is white now. Or I can use the background color, which would be blue. Okay, and fill it with that, and that will make a whole shape for our selection. Okay, while this is selected, you can go to your move tool and you can move this, which will basically just copy it. Okay, and I just made a brand new shape. So that's what that does. Now for the lasso tool, if you wanted to make a more precise shape, I can just go ahead and drag my mouse, and it's sort of like cutting it out by hand instead of having straight lines going. Okay, so what you need to make sure that you're aware is that this only makes a selection. So if I wanted to go ahead and fill this with white now, I can go ahead and do that. Okay, so we sort of went through the selection tools, the basic ones. We also have our magic wand tool and quick select tool down here, or we'll just go through the magic wand. For flat colors, this works really well. So if I, let's say, wanted to select this, I can just go ahead and drag there. Okay, and as you can see, it selects it, and now I can go ahead and fill this with white, and it disappears apart from this tiny little edge around there. Okay, I can also go ahead and do that with red, with this shape. So if I only wanted to select this red, I can go ahead and select that, as you can see, and I can fill it with white, and all the red disappears. And as you notice, this red didn't get selected, and the reason for that is because the connection between the two red is not big enough. Now what we can do in the magic wand tool is that we can go ahead and increase the tolerance in this subgroup. So if we increase that to, let's say, for example, 100, and then deselect and reselect it, as you can see, it now selects that line as well. So if I go ahead and use my bucket tool now, it still didn't select it. I thought it did anyway. If I wanted to select that as well as my main shape, I can go ahead and select that, and then hold down Shift on my keyboard, and then as you can see, there's a little plus sign next to my magic wand, like so, and now I should have selected it. And make sure that you also paint bucket this shape as well. There we go, that might have been the problem. Let's go ahead and try to get rid of that white line, or the red line. That's not going to happen. So let's say we did want to get rid of this red line as well. How are we going to go on about that? Now there are many ways. As you can see, you can use a different rectangular tool. So I can just go ahead and select all this and then paint it in with white, and make sure that I do click on the red. So this is the bad thing with the paint bucket tool, that you gotta make sure you click on the line that you want to fill in. Okay, so as you can see, this is a bit painstaking. A different way to go ahead and delete things off the page is by using the eraser. So if I press E on my keyboard, which is this, the eraser, I can go ahead and I can just brush away. Now the reason why it's brushing blue is because our color here needs to be white and our background color needs to be white as well. So if I now start to brush away with 100% opacity, you gotta make sure your opacity is 100. Okay, and let me just right click on the page and I'll go ahead and pick a flat brush, okay, and increase the size. You can also go ahead and do that up here, so you can go ahead and click this and you'll have this sub menu pop up, or you can just right click on the page and you'll have the same sub menu pop up. So make sure your flow, opacity and hardness is 100%. Make my brush a little bit bigger, and now I can go ahead and brush away in here. Okay, start deleting things, same around here. And also, because these things are on the same layer that we'll go over later on, I can go ahead and start deleting things of these shapes as well. Okay, so that goes quite well. I can go ahead and make my brush smaller. Now I think this is a good time to also go ahead and go through brushes a little bit. So if I select this softer brush, as you can see, I make it a little bit bigger, and you notice that my opacity and flow is still 100% and my hardness this time is on 0. Let's go ahead and just do a single click in here. Okay, so as you can see, this will have a softer edge. Now what happens if you turn up the hardness a little bit? As you can see, it will have a lot harder edge, so it's not going to have that smooth transition. If I turn down the hardness a little bit, so you can see it's more like spray paint a little bit. So these are different sort of brushes you can get. You can also get custom brushes, so like the splatter one, that will go through more in that later on. So I don't want you guys to freak out that, oh my god, what is he doing? But basically we'll go through these more in detail later on down the line, okay? So the next step that we're going to go ahead and go through before I've run out of time, we just covered the magic wand tool and different eraser brushes. We're going to go ahead and go through this crop tool. So let's say I made my image, okay? So this section of my image right here is, I reckon, beautiful, and everything else here on the page I do not want. Okay, so I don't want this. Let's go ahead and make this a little bit nicer still, so you can work with this. So we'll just press B. Let's press E instead for our eraser. Okay, I don't want to go into the brush tool just yet. I'm going to go ahead and pick a soft brush and increase the size a bit, and we're going to turn this into what you guys are going to look like, hopefully, by the end of this series. Okay, so you guys are going to be all happy. That's your eye. I'm going to go ahead and pick a black color for your iris right there with my brush, and you guys do not use the brush yet because we haven't gone through it yet. Anyway, this is what you guys are going to look like by the end of this series. If you're a girl, you're going to look more something like this. Okay, so anyway, this is my final picture that I want to save. Okay, so this is my amazing art that I created, and I don't want to really save all this stuff on the left. Okay, and that's when the crop tool would come in. So I would go ahead and select my crop tool, and I can go ahead and make a selection with my crop tool like so. And as you see, everything else on the background has gone black or dark grey, which means it's not selected in my image. So now I can go ahead and adjust this by dragging these little things on the side, and I made my selection. And now what I can do is, if I press enter, as you can see, it will get rid of everything else on the page, and it will also resize your initial size of your art. So if you remember, we made an A4 page at the beginning, and now if you have a look and go to image and go to image size or canvas size instead, as you can see, if you remember, the width was 2500 and the height was 3500. Now that we cropped it, our image is a lot smaller. Okay, so I want you guys to remember this, because this is really important, that when you use the crop tool, you don't just cancel everything out on a page and your page will be the same size, but what's going to happen, it will crop your page so your actual artwork will be less than or a lot smaller than what your art was, unless obviously if I crop half of it, then if I crop half, don't crop it, I only want to crop half on my page, obviously then my page will be half as big as it initially was. Okay, so I want you guys to be aware of this. So we're going to go ahead and I'm just going to crop this again, and we're going to go ahead and wrap up the first part of the tutorial here. So I'm going to go ahead and crop my image beautifully, press enter on my keyboard, and once I'm happy with this, to go ahead and save your designs, you would go to File, you would go to Save As for now. Okay, so you'd go to your desktop and you would go ahead and name this as my design, and here in the format you can go ahead and make sure that this is going to be saved as a Photoshop file. Now what this will mean is that when you go ahead and open this up again, you'll be able to go back and work on your file. We'll go ahead and go through all these other formats later on down the line, but when you want to save something to go ahead and be able to come back and work on it, you save it as a PDF. When you go ahead and save it as sort of your final design to show your friends, you go ahead and save it as a JPEG. Okay, so I'll save that as a JPEG. Okay, and this little window will come up. You can go ahead and drag up the file size to the maximum and then click OK. Okay, so this is my final art that I made. I hope that you guys enjoy it and enjoy this first part of the tutorial series. In the next couple of parts, we'll go through the other tools, and then we'll go ahead and make some cooler designs later on, some more advanced, but I'm afraid we're going to have to go through all this sort of boring stuff at the beginning for you guys to be able to follow along. Okay, so make sure you guys like